Welcome to the podcast. Today's guest is a special gentleman by the name of DavO Stanton Bryant. And he's such an inspiring musician, a very spiritual cat, and someone I met a couple years ago as we did a duo guitar and percussion gig over at La Provence in Nob Hill. And we formed a relationship that to this day I value so much. He recently has been traveling a little bit, was just in Spain last year for a couple months, and it changed his perspective quite a bit from the other times he's been. He's a good friend of mine, a sweethearted gentleman, and a tremendous drummer and percussionist. You guys are in for a treat. I really thank you for listening to Our Talk Music. I hope you subscribe, comment, review, like, share, all of that good stuff. But for now, we're going to get to the podcast. Thank you for listening and enjoy. Welcome to Our Talk Music, DavO Bryant. Dave Bryant, Mr. David Stanton Bryant. How are you doing, my friend?
All of the above.
We were...
just as long as you call.
Yeah. We were having this conversation before about, you know, the importance and the conversation of names and what people call you versus what your actual name is and stuff. Yeah.
Nicknames out of control.
It's funny, man. You know, I don't know if I ever told you this, Dave, but
See, when you say Dave, it doesn't sound right.
Hey, thank you. I'm glad you say it on there too, man. DavO. Listen, man, when I was younger, in kindergarten through second grade, I went by my middle name, Toulouse, which nowadays people know is my last name, but it's my middle name.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know how to spell Claudio.
But you knew how to spell Toulouse?
But I knew how to spell Toulouse, Toulousse. I mean, it was spelled differently than the French way, and I don't know. I mean, that was like, I remember messing with computers at that time. I just remembered how Toulouse was spelled on the keyboard. You know, it was an experience of that. Yeah. But when I went to third grade, from third grade to fifth grade, I switched elementary schools. You know, I went to the two different feeder middle school or elementary schools that fed into the same middle school in the East Mountains here, right outside of Albuquerque. And from third grade on, I learned how to spell Claudio. So I went by Claudio. And then when I got to middle school, the issue of people being like, hey, what's up, Toulouse? And people would be like, who's Toulouse?
Didn't sound
Claudio,
right.
Who's that? And they'd be like, who's Claudio? Toulouse, what's this guy talking? It's like that name thing is something I've definitely experienced throughout my life, man. And it's funny now, you know, deciding to just go by Claudio Toulouse, seeing people as they approach my parents and them being like Mr. Toulouse or Mrs. Toulouse. And
so is that what you're using as your last name now?
I mean, artistically, that's what I go by. I go by Claudio Toulouse.
Okay.
On Facebook, my name is Claudio Toulouse. On my website, everywhere. The only place that people see my name Perez is when I sign a check to them or... You know.
Well, there's advantages to it because it's more unique. Claudio Toulouse.
That's right.
How many
man.
of those are there?
That's
if
right.
Someone Googled that.
And that's
Claudio Perez.
Hey.
Thousands.
That's right, man.
Same for me as Dave or David Bryant. It's thousands.
And DavO makes you so much more unique than Dave or David.
It may have started, someone with an identity crisis wanting to have something unique.
Sure, man. Sure.
And for where it started for me was being in bands with other Davids.
So they had to distinguish.
There would be two or three.
Right.
Right. And it's like, okay, no, I'll be DavO. Someone will be Dave. Someone else will be David,
Yeah. That's good. People used to just forget my name, so they used to call me Carlos.
There you go.
So how far back did it go? Like when do you think the beginnings of DavO was?
Definitely before I moved to New York. So probably even in high school, some of my musician friends.
Now, for the people, so you let them know, you grew up in Santa Fe, is that right? Did I get that
born
right?
and raised in Albuquerque.
Excuse me, all right. Born and raised in Albuquerque.
Graduated from Sandia High School.
Sandia High School, that's right. I don't know why the connection with, I guess the connection with Santa Fe is your one of your teachers along the way was Peter Mall. right?
Oh, absolutely. I was lucky to actually study with Pete when I was right out of high school. So I'd maybe been 17, 18. So I studied with him for a couple of years, where I would drive to Cerrillos.
Yeah, and not that he's connected with Santa Fe, but yeah, he's connected with a lot of Santa Fe drummers, who were around in your, raising around the time that you were growing up and stuff. But
I remember
you should drive out to his house in Cerrillos or to the post office and meet him, and then he'd drive you up to his house.
I knew where his crib was. It was interesting.
All the way up there, your car could get up there. Like, was he living at that same place or?
No, he wasn't like way up on his land yet. He had like a house in Cerrillos that he shared with his lady at the time. And I remember I wanted to study with Mark Clark, but Mark said, no. Mark wasn't into it. He said, you should study with this guy, Pete Mall. And that was Mark's teacher, right? Yeah.
Mark
I think
studied with him, not his teacher, I should say.
Friend, mentor.
Right.
So he introduced me to Pete. Yeah. So, because I've actually known Mark since I was 11, we both went to Hummingbird Music Camp. Huh. And Mark was 1 year ahead of me, but light years ahead of everybody. He was playing, like a big boy with the big boys. Wow. I mean, at that time, Bobby Shue and another LA musician would come for the week. Mm-hmm. I got to go to the last 2 weeks of Jazz Week at Hummingbird Music Camp, which, they were a very Christian family. So Jazz Week didn't look like the rest of the weeks. They were very...
Hummingbird Music Camp is a Christian family that started that?
Well, I don't know that I could say that so much. They were really just good people, conservative people, ran this music camp. And then and Mrs. Higgins just passed away recently. They had something for her, which I was invited to, but I had another gig, so I couldn't do it. But Jazz Week was a lot different. And they were catching kids down by the river, doing what kids do down by the river. And
what were you doing down by the river?
Having a lot of fun. Yeah. And even Chief Sanchez was there.
Oh, man, I love
Chief. And I used to buddy up.
Shout out to Chief.
Yeah. So, but those 2 weeks of getting to go to jazz camp, that was it for me. My parents actually used to kind of joke about it. We wish we'd never sent you to that Hummingbird Music Camp. I was already really devoted to music. I kind of got onto it when I was about maybe 10, pretty young, where that's really what I wanted to be, was a musician, be a great musician.
Right.
But I know the first time I went to Hummingbird Music Camp, that's the first time I'd got to hear a jazz musician 5 feet away from me doing what they do. And I remember the drum teacher, I don't remember his name, but he was a good drummer.
Yeah.
And it was just like unbelievable for me. I just loved it.
That was in high school?
No, dude, that was when I was 10 years old.
Oh,
yeah. I went to my first Hummingbird. I went to like a regular band camp, and then the next 2 years I got to go to jazz camp.
So would you say you were about 10 years old when you knew you wanted to do music? I mean, that, because I know you said you were into it before, but that really solidified it for you, huh?
Yeah, it's funny because there's not really... My parents were music lovers.
Yeah.
I'm very grateful for that, and they liked big band jazz. They actually met at a USO big band dance during World War II. Fell in love. So they met through music. And I think secretly they kind of really dug it, that I was a musician, that I was a good drummer. They used to always come to my shows, and it was very supportive, Now, they didn't want me to do it as a career, but at that time they just couldn't do anything about it. It was too late.
Sorry, Mom and Dad.
Yeah.
I'm hooked.
Yeah. And I was already making money. I was...
That's so empowering, man. When you start making money doing something like that, it's like all of a sudden you're like, what? Wait, whoa.
It was a big deal. For me, because let's see, when I was still in high school, maybe 13, 14, I was already playing with older people, and even in bars where my parents would have to go with me.
Right.
Yeah, I can remember overhearing a conversation with my parents. I was eavesdropping, and my dad's like, "What are we gonna do? He's already making money. He's doing it." My mom's like, "Well, we have to get him out of this." Yeah, they just wanted what was best.
I'm taking him to see Father Robert in the morning.
Yeah. So, but that was when I don't know. That would be, I'd have to get the years right, but. I was, I just feel very grateful growing up in Albuquerque that there was music in the public schools, because when the first actual drum I ever got to play, I was in 5th grade.
Whoa.
So
okay. All right.
The band director came and said, hey, if your parents can pony up $10 a month, you can rent any band instrument you want and be in the concert band.
What?
Right? That was at Comanche Elementary. I think maybe it was like 3 days a week, but it was during school. You could be in band class as your elective.
How sick.
And I rented a snare drum that I still have, a Rogers.
What do you mean? Hold on. You rented a snare drum you still have. You bought the snare drum later in life.
I rented it to buy it, but I rented it from Nick Lucchetti.
Oh.
That was Nick Lucchetti's first shop, which was by Octopus Car Wash. Wow. And it was more of a guitar store with some drums.
Yeah.
But we went and I rented a snare drum and then paid that off.
So from then, the school had a deal with the Comanche school had a deal with Nick Lucchetti's
I think
school?
Nick just might have been the local business that was providing rental instruments.
How cool is that, man?
Yeah. And then...
Okay, I see what you mean. You started renting it until you paid it off.
Yeah, it was kind of like a rent to own if you want to keep up with it, right? Yeah. Or you just return it, you know?
Yeah.
And actually, it's a great Rogers snare that I still use to this day. And then, what was interesting is that I'd already been making my own drum sets out of my mom's pots and pans. I remember I had a Charlie's potato chip can was my snare and knitting needles. And I was already, if I saw like the Beatles on TV or something, I'm banging away in time. Mm. Then when I got that snare drum, I remember I learned my first 13 rudiments in about 2 weeks on my own, just visualizing them. So I didn't know what eighth notes or quarter notes were, but I could kind of just see, because
But you heard someone say rudiments, like you knew the word?
No, it came with a rudiment sheet.
Oh, I see.
The snare drum came with a practice pad, a pair of sticks, and a rudiment sheet of the first 13, and then the other 13 on the backside.
Wow.
So the band director was like, what? I remember he called my dad and said, he's been doing this for 2 weeks, and he's like, wow, you got to get him a private teacher, right? Wow. So my dad's like, we're kind of hoping he's going to grow out of this, So
Sorry,
they did.
Dad, he's hooked.
They got me a private teacher, and that was at Bob Farley Music, because Nick Lucchetti Drum and Guitar wasn't at his bigger store yet. They didn't have private teachers and stuff.
Bob Farley's is where Bomb's Music is at now, or where?
No, that's where that swim place is now on Eubank. The teach your kids how to swim. It's like Eubank and Comanche.
Okay.
But Bob Farley had a big music store and a performance space across the street.
Wow.
Which was the first time I ever played a jazz gig was with Arlen Asher when I was maybe 14, 15. And I think they were desperate for a drummer that they ended up, with this kid. Yeah. But part of the performance, it was like a lecture performance. They expected everybody to talk about what they do.
So 14 years old, you were just like...
I came up with something. I don't know what I said, but...
I play the drums right now, but you'll see me play the pots and pans at my house.
Yeah.
Or something.
So but then just to finish that, by the time I was... the summer before 6th grade, I convinced my dad to let me get into a drum set. So it was a used drum set, and my dad made me pay it off before I could take it home.
What?
So Nick was like, oh, no, you can pay on it. My dad said, no. This is the arrangement we're going to do. He's going to work for me. He's going to pay you. So I used to take the bus down there to look at that Gold Sparkle Ludwig drum set, because they had such a little shop. It would be stacked way up like on shelves.
And that was the shop, and that was the drum set?
That was my drum set. So my dad made me, do weeds and chop this and dig that. And I don't know what it was, maybe $300 back then, but it took me quite a while. But by the time 6th grade started, I had a drum set. Wow. With a couple crummy cymbals. And
How cool is that?
I was playing,
man?
Yeah.
And what a moral your dad instilled in you, because you were one of the first drummers I met that was like, oh yeah, bro, I have a lot of snares. And I was like, what's a lot? You were like, a lot.
15. I'm left with about 15. I've sold a lot, but
I know, but
I've kept the winners.
Nowadays I know more drummers and more musicians in general that just have a huge collection. But from when you're young and when your dad is like, all right, you've been working hard, or like, you want you want this, like, let's see you work,
No, my dad was like that. I've had the same bank account since I was 10, and my credit history goes that far back. My first bicycle.
Are you serious?
Yeah, my dad made me take a bank loan out. I didn't borrow the money from him. He co-signed a bank loan, and I had to pay that thing off. He taught me, this is how the world works, man. Wow. You got to pay your bills. You got to make your money, and so I was very lucky that way. Wow.
It's crazy, man, what parents do to instill in us teachings, like what ways, what methods they use to, say, all right, we got to teach Johnny this. We got to teach,
and not everybody has those kinds of parents.
It's
we
true.
have to learn it wherever we can find
in general,
it.
You're right. Or through the experience. But sometimes the way that parents do that definitely like resonates and still impacts us today.
Yeah. My dad, was one of those people that really did come from nothing. So he was the youngest of 11, grew up on a poor, very poor family on a farm in South Carolina.
Wow.
So what he earned everything he had, and he was just a great influence that way.
How cool, man. Do you still have family in South Carolina?
Maybe some. I do have some cousins, some relatives. Some of them, are big Trump supporters, and there's racial issues, and they're not really people I relate to that much.
Sure.
My immediate family was really awesome that way, and but I remember when my dad's brothers came to visit, and there was a lot of dropping of the N-word, and I had gotten my dad out of that, and I remember him shutting it down, like, you don't talk that way here, in my house, and I could remember some of that drama. But when you grow up in the South and you're poor, it's ingrained,
It's ingrained, and then it's just like, it's such a rub, man. It's such an experience that still, the drummer Richard Reed.
Heard of him a lot.
He's a wonderful drummer that's been living in Santa Fe for about 7.5 years, and he was telling me about that experience. He repaints stucco, and had that experience with a guy that he was working with the other day. And man,
addressing him that way,
just dealing with things in that way, and saying to him, "You people," and talking to him about all these things. And I mean, it's a narrative that
a lot of ignorance has a green light right now. I think it's best that people are kind of showing their true colors. Because that's the best remedy, sunshine.
It's interesting to observe, man, and see the true colors of.
It's disappointing, but it's important to know.
It is
that it really exists, because a lot of light-skinned people don't think it exists the way it really does. But you ask a person of color or a Native American, they'll tell you what it is.
Oh, we see the world through a different lens, And
but that's one of the things I'm grateful to be a musician. I've always admired black culture.
Yeah,
I
admire. You also see the lens the other way. I mean,
yes, I experienced it a lot working with Africans and being the only white guy in the room, in a big room.
I remember you used to tell me about your time in New York, man, and like playing at the Apollo and being the only white guy there.
I auditioned. I actually got to audition to be the house drummer at the Apollo.
Wow.
Which I went into reluctantly. The musical director was a piano player that went by the name of Sugar Bear. I don't know any other name for him. Sugar Bear. He was a funky individual. I was playing in a band with him with
What did he play? What did Sugar Bear play?
Keyboards.
Okay.
Major. He beat jazz, but funk, right?
Nice.
But had the jazz harmony. Okay. So through the drummer Gregory Brown, who is one of the drummers on Songs in the Key of Life.
Wow.
I got to know Gregory Brown through playing with the Holmes brothers. And Gregory used to call me to sub for him on all kinds of gigs up in Harlem.
Wow.
And I would say, Gregory, you remember I'm a white guy, right? Is it safe for me to go to 168th and St. Nicholas? He's like, oh, yeah, dude, it's no thing. Everything will be fine. But it was always a kind of an amazing experience. When they first laid eyes on me, was the first time that they realized I wasn't a black guy. And they're like calling Gregory, what's up? They're like, just to give him a chance, man. You're going to like Dave, And so I was in a band that almost got signed to a record label with two girls named DeCoco and Chocolate. And it was the same time that the Weather Girls were breaking. So these two girls were amazing. They were
What year was this? Like, when is this? Like
85, yeah, mid-80s. we were playing the Limelight. We were playing big shows around New York, and these girls were really close to getting signed. But I think and they were two very large black ladies, and they didn't end up getting signed.
Yeah.
But these gigs, everybody in this band was amazing. The guitar player was from South Africa. I was the only white guy in the band. But I got to know these guys, and I remember Sugar Bear saying, "Hey, we're auditioning for drummers at the Apollo." And I'm like, "Yeah?" And he's like, "Dude, you should do it. There's nothing to lose," you know? And I did it. I did the audition. I knew all that music. I was playing, you know, I'd been studying James Brown and all of it, you know. I was actually in a James Brown funk band with a great singer who's got her own career now. I'm blanking. So that, you know, I had a lot of experiences where I got to see what it was like being the minority, but then I could go back into the white world, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, man. Oh yeah.
And so I'm glad I got that perspective and that education, just see how the world, because I was so naive moving to New York. I was just full of love and wanted to be friends with everybody. And if I saw a drummer with a cymbal bag, I'd say, hey, my name's Dave Bryant. I'm a drummer too. And they just look at me like, okay, good luck with that, you know? I mean, it didn't always work out great, but it was like, you know, it was good for me to.
Was that just the New York vibe?
Yeah. Eventually I got with the program too. You know, you got to you know, because I was a little too open, too giving. People were really suspicious, like, you know.
What's up with this cat, right?
What's up with this cat? Yeah. And even some of my friends had to take me aside, you know, and go, "Hey, D, just cool it, man. You're here because you play good. You know, you don't have to be everybody's friend, help everybody." And, you know, I was still like, I see a homeless person, I'd go try to help them somehow.
It's just in your nature. You've just always been that way, right?
Yeah.
It's the big heart of you, bro. Now, all right. Now, was that around the time that you were playing with Dave Douglas? Or was that
Yes, actually, I played with Dave Douglas on the street. Wow. So that's, we're here to tell stories,
no,
right?
man, I remember you told me about the MTV star. I was hoping you'd bring that thing up.
We're going to find it. I was in a street band with Dave Douglas, Mark Lambert on guitar, Rave Tessar on keyboards, and Kermit Driscoll on bass. Kermit's on a lot of Bill Frisell records. So we had this like killing street band playing bebop, but we would also play funk and hip hop. Sometimes we'd have the break dancers, you know, on the next corner would come and collaborate, and we'd do something together. But we came in third in the MTV Battle of the Street Bands, hosted by Paul Schaefer. So this was like a big deal.
Hosted by Paul Schaefer.
Yeah, you know, and we came in third. We weren't playing bebop. We kind of adjusted it and played some funk and stuff. But and how I met those guys was my third day in New York City, which was like July of 1984. I went out to try to learn the subways, and I was completely lost. I didn't know where I was. I didn't know how to understand the map.
Yeah.
And I thought, I didn't even know if I was still in Manhattan, right? So I better just go up ground, right? So I just exited the subway system. I went up to the street, and I was near the corner of Fifth Avenue and 56th, one of those where the Plaza Hotel is, the corner of Central Park.
Yeah.
And I come up to the street, and I hear live jazz. I'm like, wow. So I follow it, and there's just these guys set up on the street. They were kind of set up at the corner of the park, you could see the plaza and the sculptures, and they were just awesome. And so I just sat there and listened to them, and they took a break, and the break went on forever and ever. And then they were all there standing. Everybody was there but the drummer. And Dave Douglas is a joke. They're all like kind of looking at each other and knowing. They're like, "Any drummers out there? What are you going to do?" Right?
So you were like, "Hey."
I kind of raised my hand timidly. He's like, "Can you play jazz?" I'm like, "Oh, I study jazz." He's like, "You want to play a tune?" I'm like, "Okay." And it went real well. And before the first tune was over, the drummer had come back from the park, whatever he was doing, right?
He heard.
He's like, what's this?
Who's playing my drums?
They were kind of upset. at them, and they just went from tune to tune. I played like 3 tunes with this guy like breathing down my neck, right?
Staring at you. Was he like standing next to you, or was he in the
yeah.
audience?
He was there almost ready to like push me off his drum set. But so after about the 3rd tune, he said, enough, you know. And Dave said, hey, don't go anywhere. I want to talk to you when we're done, you know. So I hung out, and he's like, so what's up? I'm like, you know, I said, I just got here. He said, like, what do you mean? I said, I just got here 3 days ago. I'm from Albuquerque.
You had just moved to New York.
I had just moved to New York. So he said, you want to play with us tomorrow? I'm like, yeah, of course I do. Like, but what, you know, how does all this work, right?
Right.
And I had a drum set on a hand truck already, not thinking I would play on the street, thinking, oh, I'm probably going to have to park a long way from wherever I play. It'd be nice to be able to go in one shot from my van.
Bring it all, right.
So I literally had a drum set already rigged up like on a hand truck, a little teeny drum set. But that was in Jersey. And so I told him about that. He said, that's exactly what you need. It sounds like you're ready. He says, you know where the trade towers are? I'm like, no. You know, he says, those are the big tall buildings at the bottom of Manhattan, you know. He says, so I had to leave right then, take the bus to Jersey to get my drums, take them back in on the bus, prepare for this. And I met them and got to play with them the next day, and then played with them
in front of the Twin Towers.
Yes, they would play at a place called Liberty Square, which had lots of street performers and jugglers, and there'd be literally 4 bands going at once.
Holy shit, man.
So through those guys,
within your first week,
within my first week
to New Orleans, New York City. I'm just thinking about my experience and you're mirroring it, but in New York City, you're like, not only did you just like go and meet, you just like jumped, had the amazing, slick, no coincidence, but opportunity to meet Dave and then get to play with him the next day in front of the Twin Towers in Manhattan.
Yeah, it's definitely mind blowing.
In Liberty Square. That's so fucking
And I got
cool,
all
man.
through those guys. I got all my gigs, you know, all my real gigs in the evening.
You started working through them.
Yeah.
Wow, man.
So that was a time where jazz was really at a kind of a low point in New York. You know, it was all these historical jazz figures that couldn't even get a gig.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like I moved into doing jazz gigs.
No, right.
But through that, I auditioned for the Holmes Brothers because, that's right, our sax player was Anders Gardman, who's now back in Copenhagen. Big, tall, like 6'6", beautiful blonde-haired Swedish dude that played tenor like the blues. It was so deep. He could just bring the house down. And that was another scene where after playing with him one day, he said, hey, I play with this great band called the Holmes Brothers, man. They're auditioning drummers, man. You should go. He said, let's go now. Let's go right from here. They're auditioning today at the Dan Lynch's. And I went, and I auditioned, and I got the gig. So I became a Holmes brother.
It helps when you walk in with one of the musicians in the band, right?
Absolutely, man. I'm with Anders, you know. And so I was the drummer for the Holmes Brothers for about 2 years when Popsy, who is the main drummer,
now,
he's deceased now.
Before you tell me about this, I just want to backtrack for a second and ask before I forget this question, because you did that very first gig on the street. When you did those kind of gigs, those busking kind of gigs, were you guys just playing for tips? Was there any?
Oh, yeah, totally. No, just for tips. But it was amazing. We were maybe a 5-piece group, right?
Yeah.
So they would actually bring in a Honda generator so they could power, and people had mouse amps. Remember the mouse amps from here?
No, I don't
so
remember them.
The keyboard player had a little amp. Guitarist, electric guitarist had an amp. And then the horn players would go out, take one of my drum cases and go out and solicit for tips.
How sick, man.
So there would be times where we would all make $50, $60 each. 5-piece group on the street. That's about what you're going to make on a gig sometimes back then. Wow. So I was amazed that I would go home with a little bit of money.
How cool is that, man? Jesus.
I mean, I would have done it for nothing.
And in that time, sure. And then in that time, and then to go from starting a gig to getting the Holmes Brothers gig. Now, you were with them for 2 years. Were y'all going on the road, or were you guys just gigging in New York?
Well, the funny thing, they were almost like the house band at Dan Lynch's. These guys, anytime
Where was
they
Dan
were...
Lynch's at?
Dan Lynch's was on 2nd Avenue and 14th Street.
In where?
In the... that would be called the Village.
Gotcha.
Not the West Village, but yeah, East Village. That'd be the East Village. And really cool club that a lot of great people played at. I remember Joan Osborne was playing there at the same time before she was really famous. And those guys would just pack the place and work. Oh my God, they made more in the tip jar. Wendell would do this thing. He was an ordained preacher, but he'd say, you know, I know this is the part y'all don't like, but I want you to dig down deep for the Holmes brothers, right? Takes money for the work to go on. And everybody would just be pulling any money they had, right? He would literally, they would make $500 in the tip jar. Wow. So those guys, that's when, so Popsy was having some health issues. He was their drummer, right? He's the other brother. Yeah. But he wasn't fit enough to take a drum set out and do all that. But he would come in and sit in with us, and I learned so much watching Popsy play. And he had the high falsetto voice, so those guys would do these 3-4 part harmonies and many times I cried on that bandstand, and they loved it. They would just bring it out in you, you know. They would come over and hug me.
Singing does that, man. Singing is so beautifully guys, powerful like that.
They would do these gospel songs, like they would do Beatles songs in a gospel rendition, stuff like that. So they're all deceased except for Sherman, the bass player, and he's still active. But that was Sherman, Wendell, Popsy, and they had a younger brother named Mo that I don't know what happened to him. He was like a half brother. But it was heavy.
So when you jumped in that band, the falsetto part, who took over that? Did someone else take over that?
Yeah. I wasn't singing.
Right. Okay.
They almost did without it.
Right.
Because he had this masterful falsetto where he was up an octave above everybody else. So when he came to sit in, and then he was adding that fourth harmony part, it was magic.
Wow, man.
And he was a master at the slow blues. He was a master at all the shuffles, which I had been studying a lot before I ever moved to New York, which is why I was able to plug into some of those gigs, because I was already digging on blues music. Even though I was an aspiring jazz musician, I didn't take a blues gig as something less, you know. I really working on my pocket, my feel.
You had a really variety,
yes,
like a big variety.
And he would come in. He was one of those drummers that could play slow blues. He was also singing. Sometimes he'd be the lead singer, and he's drumming to that. It's not to a metronome. It's like a funeral march. I don't know the right term. It's ebb and flow. It's this, like, it's breathing. It's how life is. It's not to a click track. And it was dramatic, man. And I couldn't do it. Slow blues was not my forte. And it was something that really hung me up, right? How do they make it? How are they thinking about this? And it's just coming from a feeling place, you know? And it's hard to learn how to do that from just listening to the recordings. It helps if you can see how the person is addressing the drum set, right? Just their body language, everything.
And what did you see when you were looking at him? I mean, like, I know he was sick, you know.
He was not in good health. He wasn't feeling well. But it was powerful. It was really powerful, dramatic, you know. And I just loved it, right? Through those guys, I got a lot of other gigs in that genre, you know, good blues people. I got to play with Pine Top Perkins a couple times. He was Muddy Waters' piano player. And, you know, all through those guys recommended me a lot. And they were like older brothers.
How cool, man. Now, when did you meet Olatunji? Baba Olatunji? What?
Babatunde Olatunji. Babatunde Michael Olatunji. His middle name was Michael. But I was playing on the street with those same guys. And his musical director, this would have been more like 86. Baba's musical director at the time was a great Nigerian musician named Suru Eke, who's deceased now, but played guitar, bass, keyboards, and all the drums. Was a master shekere player, master junjun player, could play all the hand drums, everything. So that was a great thing about playing on the street. Not only did I meet a lot of great women and great people from all around the world, you know, one day Suru's just beaming at me the whole set, and then comes up and introduces himself and says, "Hey man, would you like to get together and play sometime?" You know, of course, right?
Tell me now. Give me a little bit of background about who Babatunde Michael Olatunji is.
Man, just Google it because it's history, right? But Baba Olatunji was one of the first people to bring African music to the West maybe it was in Europe by then, or people were, but to America especially. My understanding, and this is just what I know, so it's not, I don't know that this is all accurate, but he came to New York on a scholarship to study political science at NYU. He was a rock star in the 60s. That's when his, when I was with him in the 80s, it was different, right? We were still playing big shows, but he was a huge star in the 60s. And what I heard was he would be invited. He would end up at these parties with Miles Davis, all these famous black luminaries, movie stars, Sidney Poitier, all these people, and they go, Baba, sing a song, play for us. No. He didn't even think of himself as a musician per se.
Wow.
It's just something, those cultures.
Right.
Even the kind of people that think of it just as a hobby are sometimes deeper than people that do it as a profession, right?
Right.
Because he had this whole religious background with the music. So these guys said, Baba, man, we're going to make you famous, man.
Sing a song, let's do something.
His friends, I think, kind of hooked him up. The first recording session, the first record he made was Drums of Passion, I think, which is a great record, right? And it's African ensemble, West African ensemble. And through that, he, would go out on tour with the Grateful Dead and all kinds of big acts, right? So that's how his music career kicked in. When I was working with him in the 80s, he was elderly but just a dynamic force. But now what's funny, since we're telling stories, Suru and I became friends, right? We jammed together. Mm-hmm. That I did several sessions with him with his original music, which was like Afrobeat, like King Sunny Ade. He was from Ghana, so he had this funky way of playing guitar. They take the Western instruments and they have all that African mojo behind it, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I did these demos. We were at a recording session for Suru, and he said, hey, what are you doing after the session? I said, well, I'm hanging out with you, I hope. Good answer, right? He says, hey, you want to go to an African dance class? There'll be a lot of beautiful women there. Woo! I'm like, yeah, let's do it. What about all my drums? He said, just leave it all here. We'll come get our stuff tomorrow. So he had this all planned out, right? They do things differently, right? He knew me well enough then that he probably said, you want to go audition for Baba Olatunji? I'm like, no, thank you.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So we went, and I'm just thinking, happy-go-lucky. We go to this big dance studio with, different dance things going on in every room. And we walk in to this big room that they were using as a rehearsal space. And there was like an electricity in the air. In fact, right as we walked in, there was this big drama going on where like a dancer had become like possessed by spirit or something, right? And the whole thing was shut down, and Baba was like dealing with this. And Suru just kept walking into the room, right? I stayed right by the door.
Just looking at everything.
Dude, I sat my white ass down close to the door because I didn't know what was happening, right? And it was something I had never really encountered before. And they got through this thing, calmed the singer down, got back to the rehearsal, and the rehearsal went for hours. And all I did was sit there and just watch this,
Just looking.
Yeah, because I didn't know it had anything to do with me.
Door. Yeah.
It was awesome, right? To sit and rehearse. And there was like 7 dancers and 10 musicians and all acoustic, no amps. And Baba's voice could just fill a stadium. It was unbelievable what would come out, right? So the rehearsal finally ends. Suru and Baba have a couple words with each other. And Suru starts walking towards the door, and he says, come on, let's go. So I follow him out, and we're walking out of this place, and he says, congratulations. I said, for what? He said, you got the gig. I said, well, what are you talking about? He said, you're our new drummer. You're our trap drummer.
All of a sudden.
He said, I've been telling Baba about you. He said, you did the right thing. Wow. You sat there and you listened. I didn't come up, I didn't. And he said, and it was almost like, well, what are you going to do to that? Wow. Can't chicken out, right? He says, you're our new trap drummer. And he said, the first rehearsal's tomorrow, and it's at Baba's house, and I'll give you the address, and I'll meet you there. He never met me there, and he never intended to meet me there.
Just threw you to the fires.
Yeah, Baba lived at a famous building on the west side. I'll think of it. A lot of opera singers. You know, it had like insulated walls, so you could have like a band rehearsal, and the apartment next door wouldn't even know about it. It was amazing. I'll think of it as a very famous 79th and Broadway. So I go to this address. You know, I go to his apartment. It's this like luxurious, high-end apartment. You know,
yeah.
And Baba answers the door. You know, and we spent a whole day together. I had my drum set with me. You know, I brought my street drum set and set it up in his living room. Yeah. And we just and I said, "So is Suru coming today?" He said, "I don't know." You know, that's Suru. You know what I mean? It was just like definitely like thrown into the deep end.
So it was just him though there.
Yeah, just the two of us.
You and him.
And we spent you know, it wasn't they just do things differently.
Just literally just threw you to the fire.
Yeah, and we worked on, and he would sit behind the drum set and play beats for me. You know, he was not a drum set drummer, but he had so much facility, and he kind of like, we went over, you know, about 10 songs, and he showed me what he wants from the drum set, and we would play together, and then when it was over, we had dinner together. He said, "Are you hungry? Would you like to stay for dinner?" I'm like, wow, these people really know how to do this. You know what I mean? Like.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
The music was just a part of it. And so and it was just like, so I ended up, you know, Bob and I became very close. He was like kind of like a second father to me, and he was a real stern taskmaster. He was a difficult person to work for and to work with. Very volatile, right? But
why is that?
I don't know, right?
Well, no, but like, why is it that it was so hard for him? Because he was so stern about what he wanted, about what, like.
I didn't know him personally enough like that, but it was like some days it was pointed at you, and it's not that you did anything different that day. It was just your turn, you know. And he was just a very intense person, and there was a couple times where it was directed at me, and it hurt, but I sucked it up and took it. And he didn't tell me to go away, you know, but I was playing catch up, because even though they were playing their secular music, it was still heavy, right? And we played some really slow pieces that were really mystifying to me. I didn't know what the fuck to do.
Mystifying, how so?
It was slower than slow. It was like the slow blues issue. We had a piece that we played in the Olatunji set, which was this, it started out so slow, it wasn't even time. And I never knew what to play. And I didn't know how to ask. And there was one day where we were actually playing a concert, and I'm trying to find my place in this piece, you know. It sped up later in the piece, and then I was cool, but I didn't know what to do for the first part, right? And he turned around, thankfully, off the mic, and he said, "DavO, you're not helping." Stop, right? Stop. If you don't know what to play, don't play anything. I thought, oh, this is my last gig, right? But no, I didn't get fired. He just said, "Lay out." That was his way, you know. So things like that, that's not an easy thing, you know.
Right. Absolutely, man.
So I had a lot of experiences like that. And a lot of the thing that I finally understood, I was there because I could play. It's not like he's going to have some white guy in the band that can't play, right? But he always had a couple Anglos in the band, and he used us as teaching tools.
Teaching tools, how much to pivot and mirror the message of what?
Because the posters would say, you know, Baba Olatunji in New Africa, it was about inclusion, right? It was his way of, I don't know. I think every now a person like me would kind of present themselves, and he would decide, but he really, almost every place we played, there was some drama went down about me being in the band. And the way he addressed that was always really incredible. Very uncomfortable for me. In fact, I didn't really want that gig so much. Wow. I used to always have a lot of fear about every gig, because they were big gigs, you know.
Big gigs, how so? Like concert halls, or just like, like a lot of people?
We played Central Park for 60,000 people for the anti-apartheid rally when Nelson Mandela was being released. These are big events, right?
Right.
And, you know, I was terrified, man. It was hard to overcome that fear, feeling real out of place. But that was kind of my ego was kind of being crushed, right? And there was one time I got stage fright. The one time I've ever had stage fright, enough to actually paralyze me. I didn't go on stage with him. I was just paralyzed. It was actually the first concert I ever did on Shekere, because that was the other thing. I got in as a trap drummer, but the first time I picked up a Shekere, I could play it, I could make it go, make it work, and he loved that. So I got good enough on Shekere where he took me on ceremonial gigs.
Whoa, right.
They were spiritual gigs. We were playing different material. There was no electric instruments. It was funerals or weddings or different events, right? I was his Shekere player. But the very first gig on Shekere was a super big gig, right? And I just froze, right? I'd never performed on Shekere with him. Yeah. There was no drum set to hide behind. You know what I mean? No armor, right? And I just didn't go on stage with him. I froze, man. And when they came off, man, he was really mad. He was really mad. And he just said, not one word, follow me. And he just ripped me a new one. But he did it in a way, he just said, this is not about you, right? Are you in or you're out? In or out, right?
Yeah.
And he framed it in a way. He even said, no one wants you in this band. Everybody comes to me, all the musicians, no one wants you here, right? But you're here. So he says, he said, I get called the N-word 10 times a day. I didn't know that, right? Says, you think I'm going to leave New York City because some ignorant people call me the N-word? Or he said, you need to get over this, right? Get over yourself, basically. You in or out? I said, I'm in. And he just turned around and never came up again. But I realized there are these drama things going down. Just let them play out. It's nothing I could make right. Or say, hey, he doesn't mean wrong, or this or that, Because there was people that didn't want me there. There was times where other guest, luminary djembe players or whatever it was, wouldn't perform because I was in the band. Rightly so. They didn't want to, the one place that they can be somewhere without a white person, right? Like, I felt them. I understood what it was, right? But Baba would say, well, that's my drummer, If you don't want to play, don't play. Right? He didn't need another great djembe player. He already had 3 in the band. But, so, that was a big education for me, to understand the racial issues we deal with as a human tribe, because it's not just an American thing. It's a tribal thing. This is something that's being worked out in the human community, right? It takes a long time for these things to get sorted out. So,
some profound stuff, man. Now, I remember years ago when you told me first about playing with him, and you kind of hinted a little bit at it earlier when you were talking about first going to see them and first having the experience of just sitting there and watching them, and how you showed up, and one of the ladies was kind of having an issue. Can you speak about that a little bit more? Because I remember you told me about many ceremonies or many situations, or maybe not even just in rehearsals it would happen, but also at shows where people would go into this trance or this state of ecstatic state.
Yeah, take on spirit.
And everything would have to come down, and he would have to address,
I'm no expert on that.
No, just anecdotal, because I remember the experiences you told me about that stuff, and being someone there that's playing and a part of everything, and then to notice that and feel the music and the heavy gravity of the music, because I have yet to experience so many of the powerful rhythmic experiences that are pure of African descent, but in Cuban descent I've felt some of them with deep trance, like that gravity.
But, yes. Yeah.
But speak to
gravitas.
Yeah, man.
Respect my authority. Man, oftentimes I would have this sense, this visualization. There would be times, especially when we were playing all acoustic shows, whether it was for Kwanzaa or some event, because Baba wasn't just a musician, he was also a shaman. Maybe the first shaman I ever met. It was around, he could pull this energy. I don't know if it's out of the ether or up through Mother Earth, but there was times when it felt like we were like a tree, like you could feel this energy coming up from the center of the earth through us as the, through Baba as like the leader, through all of us as participating musicians, and then out into the audience of all the people that are feeling it. Wow. It was like a very intense, grounding energy. And I think it comes from the earth. It comes from the center of the earth, right? And the way those guys played, that's something that really helped me to be around African, even if they were hand drummers, and whenever they would pick up a stick, maybe the stick was as thick as a broomstick, right? It wasn't like a drumstick.
Right.
I had all this like snare drum technique, and I just threw it all out the window once I saw these guys pick up a broom handle and make it, right? Wow. It's like, wow, listen to the feel that they're getting. And that's what happened when I started playing hand drums. My drum set playing changed. It got deeper and in a pocket. And that was because of Baba. I had played a little bit of hand drums, but I really studied djembe and learned to get my tones.
Yeah.
But the thing with the shekere is interesting, because that instrument kind of plays you. You can't just stand like a stick figure and make that thing go.
It's all about like how the move and the push and pull of it, or what?
Yeah, DavO, bend your knees, stick your bum out. Then you get it going, and it kind of reverberates you.
Wow.
Right? You have to kind of surrender.
So your knees are bent the whole time you're playing
it? Yeah, it's
more or less.
Thing.
It's a movement,
right? Yeah. You don't want to be like straight-legged.
Sure.
Then the wave doesn't travel through your body correctly.
Wow. Right.
So it was like things like that changed the way when I was behind a drum set, I like started getting my feel was getting deeper. And that's why I got a lot of sessions because I didn't care if I ever played a fill. I just like to lay that pocket down. And that was a good thing for me.
Now, I remember meeting you, not to jump stories here, but talking about pockets and experiencing those things is I met you around the time that you were playing a lot with Hillary Smith, and you were playing a lot with Chris Drake up here in town.
Yeah.
And
we had the Hip Pocket Band.
Come on.
With Milo and Fig.
Not just that band, but you were also the drummer for Soul Kitchen at the time.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, that's right. With Hillary and Chris were doing Soul Kitchen.
Yeah. Now to jump to the other side, the other spectrum of experiences from being around, ecstatic music around all these experiences of, not busking, but just playing music on the street for people and doing music contests. I mean,
there's a purity. There's a thing about what I really experienced in this playing in a good street band. Mm-hmm. You're in New York City. You're playing on a big wide sidewalk, or sometimes we would play downtown. Sometimes we play Central Park. Sometimes we play 6th Avenue.
Yeah.
Sometimes you'd have 200 people around you that are the last thing they expected.
It's
they didn't
totally
buy a ticket.
Spontaneous.
Totally spontaneous. They're on their way to work or something, and there's a band. You hold their interest as long as you can hold their interest.
It is honest.
It is.
It's
and when you've got a couple hundred people crammed around you, digging on what you're doing, it's very powerful. It's a beautiful thing to experience.
Wow.
Yeah. Not that I couldn't do that again at my age and dragging my stuff around like that.
Even more so than a busking thing, that's got to be like a big city thing, like a New York thing. Or just
people would freak out. There's like, there's like a 6-piece jazz band on the sidewalk. Man,
Right.
Killer,
right. Or like I saw this video the other day of Niles Rodgers dressed up in London, after he had just played like a giant stadium the day after.
Really?
Dressed up as a busker and just playing his songs on the street,
Interesting.
And eventually,
people aren't recognizing him.
Eventually a circle of people formed around. They're like, this guy looks and is playing exactly like Niles Rodgers. And
it is Niles Rodgers.
But where I was getting at with that question that I was asking you about this the evolution, the transitions through your life of playing music, of experiencing music from playing on the streets to playing in musical religions. What I mean is ceremonies, which you use music as part of their religions, like shamans do, to playing in bars and doing stuff. I mean, I know that we're just kind of jumping forward to where I saw you in that experience.
What that makes me think of is one thing I learned from working with with Baba Olatunji's group and other Africans that I got to work with.
Yeah,
is that the secular music they play is the tip of the iceberg. That's the music that's appropriate to be shared. with the public. It's party music. They think of it as party music.
Yeah.
But a lot of these musicians, that's 20% of what they can do. They have this whole ceremonial thing that is whatever it is, right? It's respected as a religion, as a spirituality, and it's not something you go and play on the street.
And there are many musicians in many cultures that are only, I mean, granted,
that's all they do.
Yeah,
right? They don't try to go out and make a living.
And we have that in our culture as well, with gospel musicians that only play gospel music.
Absolutely.
Or just other musicians that are just like great musicians that are playing out on the streets to make a living, but then on Sundays they go and play some serious, heavy, crazy stuff, just because that's where they put their music and their hearts, in the music.
I learned a lot about that. When I had some really amazing tribal music on a cassette that someone had given to me. It wasn't a commercial cassette, right? It was some of the most unbelievable polymetric stuff I'd ever heard in my life. I could not tell what they were doing at all, right? But I used to listen to this a lot because I got like a zap from it. This was almost like a folkloric recording or something, like literally a cassette recording somebody made, like they didn't even know they were being recorded type of thing. And as I got deeper into Baba's world, I said, Baba, can I play something for you? What is this, right? And I had my Walkman with me or something, right? And I played some of it. He said, turn it off right now. He said, don't. He said, were not intended to be recorded. He said, that is not something just to play with. In fact, that's going to mess you up. It's like, whoa.
So
he said, you should destroy that. I don't think I did, right? Like, I don't know where that is, but he said that's something that I can't explain to you right now. Just trust me that that's not for you to play around with. Because I was saying, I can't tell what time you're there, blah, blah, blah. This was some like deep
heavy
shamanic stuff, right? That's not meant just to be played casually. So I was just like, wow, these people are so heavy, Oh, wow.
That's it's such an experience to think about music as spiritual and the role that it plays in all different facets of our life. I mean, as worship and prayer music, as celebration music when something happens,
I think any music can
death
be that.
march, as ceremonial music whenever we're going through a psychedelic experience in the jungles, when you're hearing your shaman bang leaves and sing.
Everybody's riding on that drum.
Everybody's got
Big
this vibration that they tune into for the different occasion, right?
Absolutely.
And it's powerful, always like hearing your experience with it and your relationship with it, man, because it's always inspired me, and you've inspired me a lot to learn about, shamanism and books about learning about yourself and empowering yourself by, like truly knowing yourself is the wisdom. I forget what quote that's from or who that's from, but
yeah, I'm remembering now a day you came over. I was staying in a loft.
Oh yeah, and I was thinking about
on
that
the table.
Earlier.
It says why Orwell matters.
Why Orwell matters?
And you said, "Who's Orwell?"
You were like, "You don't know who George Orwell is?"
Okay, I remember I went to the used bookstore, and I think I got you 1984.
Yeah.
I got you some Aldous Huxley.
Yeah, you did.
I got you
the book on knowing yourself. The taboo against knowing who you are.
Big time, right? I got you some what else? Alan Watts.
Yeah.
I got you a stack of 99-cent books.
That's the Alan Watts book. But yeah, you got me a bunch of books. You got me.
And I said, don't read these all at once.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you went and proceeded to do. Because the next time I saw you, you had that
fucked up.
You had that look. I'm like, you didn't go and read them all at once, did you?
I was like, no, I'm good, Dave. I'm good. Just Dave, why is everything so fucked up, man?
Yeah.
It's some heavy shit, but I mean, learning about people like that and learning about what music could be and what role it could play for someone.
Sometimes I feel like I'm prostituting myself as a musician, but hey, we're all just trying to survive.
We all have a price tag, bro. So, all of us are whores that like, lift up our dress of like showing up and setting up our musical instruments for however much money we're willing to say. Okay,
where I've made peace with it, I save that for my own original music. That's my spiritual music. If it's my own folk music,
it is.
And I'm not on the dime.
And you have to
the clock's not running.
Right.
I'm here on my own time,
right?
A spare time I don't even have.
You have to find the medium of, the balance of everything that you're doing. The question that I was trying to get at earlier, I don't like to stick on something, but the narrative that I was bringing through connecting all of those experiences that we've already kind of discussed on this podcast is to ask you the question of from when I met you.
We started playing. We were doing that gig at the French.
We met. We truly met through Daniel Ward.
That's right.
La Provence.
Right. I was doing it. It was Daniel's gig.
That's right, man. It was Daniel Ward's gig. It was a summer gig, I believe, in the year of 2012. Right.
Interesting. No, I'm taking your word on that.
I think it was 2011 or 2012, around that time frame, and it was beautiful to have met you then, reflecting on what we were just talking about, because at that time, in 2012, I, to my parents, gave up being Catholic,
Okay.
I told them on Easter weekend.
Since they're sincerely and deeply Catholic, right? You felt
and I
a
grew
responsibility.
up deeply Catholic, a serious Catholic. I just let them know that I, did not consider myself Catholic, nor did I want to go with them to these services, and nor do I want to, allow them to think that I'm just going to come back. It's just something I'm going through. It's like, no, Mom and Dad, I don't want to believe this anymore, and this is where I'm at right now, and I just want you to respect that.
Were they cool with it?
It's definitely hard. It was definitely hard. My mom got up and left. And she's like, I don't want to hear this. And my dad was just like, all right, let's sit and talk this out.
Because they're worried about you.
Argued about it. But, I came at it from a weird perspective. But I digress, as I often just kind of get into tangents. The reason that I pull all of these experiences together into when you and I first met and when I met you was around the time that you were playing with this amazing powerhouse band that, that worked so much. Hillary and Chris, both nowadays they're kind of doing their own things, but they still work so much. And when they were together, they were working like crazy.
Yeah.
I mean,
that was a great band.
That was a serious working gig here in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And I remember you were kind of hitting, not a dead end, but you were kind of hitting a wall because of your ears.
Yeah.
Because of
it had nothing to do with the people or the music.
It had nothing to do with Hillary or Chris, but it was the evolution of your career from playing music and years of beating on your ears, right?
Yeah, whatever.
As well
30
as
years of playing bars, small settings.
Even just playing drums, because drums is just such a loud instrument to be practicing in a small little practice room, banging things, and then...
Some people's ears are tougher than others. I know rock drummers that don't have the hearing issues I have, and they never wear earplugs. But for whatever reason, it started to take a toll on me.
At that time, right? That was kind of why you hit
even
that
before
wall.
Then,
right? No, sure, but that was kind of when it hit its
where it was almost wasn't healthy for me to be doing that too many times a week. Tap out. That's a good term,
right?
And just say, and it's been a hard transition, because it's almost like, well, that part of my life is kind of over, because it's not that I love to play drum set, but it is really loud and I have to wear earplugs.
Yep.
It's one thing I really like playing flamencos. I don't have to put my earplugs in. Woo. It's more acoustic,
man.
And it's just, I'm playing a box drum and an acoustic,
I always
guitar.
love calling you for those gigs, because like I told you that one time that we played just a couple of weeks ago, it was like, this is like how we met, bro. I was
doing that duo thing.
I was hoping you would have brought that bass drum, because
that French drum, that wasn't like a great gig, but it's how we met.
It was not.
We had to play really soft. There was,
but it was an opportunity. Yeah, it was an opportunity for us to. Yeah, they would always like, can you play a little softer, a little softer,
look, just a little softer.
Okay, it's just okay. How's
that? But something always comes from it. Something good can come from it. But then there's sometimes it's like diminishing returns. I had to start thinking of, because my favorite thing to do as a musician is to work in the studio. But those days have really changed. There's not a lot of that kind of work.
Sure.
I used to get 4 or 5 sessions a year in LA. Maybe I get one every 2 years now. Where it's well financed. This just doesn't happen anymore.
Right.
But I do love to record. That's why.
You've kind of taken that upon yourself, though, and like brought the studio into your own home. Something
I've always had tape machines. I've always been into recording.
I know you've always had that, but even more so than like having the setup at your home, or having the gears, or the ability to record everything. Now you've actually put stuff out right into the world, man. Like it was inspiring for me to see you do that independently on Bandcamp a while ago, because you did that, what, 2016, 15? You put maybe out around your first stuff?
Yeah, it's been out maybe 3-4 years. And nothing has happened with it economically. But it's out there, and I can direct people to it.
But artistically and creatively, man, you've put something of your own out there into the world. Yes. And it's something that I have been having a conversation with a couple people about, because you were talking about Nick Lucchetti earlier, and Nick Lucchetti's drum shop, I do believe, was taken over by Jim Agnorella. And Jim Agnorella, or maybe they changed locations from when it was.
It might have gone through a few things,
right.
Yeah.
But Jim Agnorella was a drummer that I knew in the late part of his life, right before he passed. Yeah. And Michael Lavolo was living with him, and I got a chance to play with him right before he passed, and his biggest desire in his heart, man, was to get something of his own out there.
Yeah.
Why? Because then that music outlives him.
Right. It's timeless, especially now with
Stu Sacco was another drummer that we both know that was an amazing friend of ours, an amazing drummer,
and died really out of the blue.
Died out of the blue. Yeah. But not only that, but the exact same sentiment. Yeah. In his heart, the deepest, thing that he had, the experience that he wanted most for him was to have his original songs, because Stu had been writing original stuff and piecing it all together.
Right.
He'd have me over and show me how you have your recording studio, but he'd have it all in his garage, all check out this original, check out how I laid it all out. I did it on the MIDI keyboard. It's man, that's beautiful. And
sometimes it's difficult to realize that.
It is, and you already did that to some extent, And so even though it hasn't monetized, it's not about that. It's about breaking that barrier, first of all, and then allowing that portal to get a little bigger, because then once you get it out and maybe get a little more distribution on it, as well as get a little bit of PR on it, whatever, down the road. I'm just saying,
if you don't put it out, none of those things can happen.
Yeah.
It's important that it's a commercial release.
And you broke down the first thing, which is getting something out, And so
I had done it.
Where can people find that, by the way? I know I'm going to put information and links and stuff like that, but that's all on Bandcamp, right?
Yeah, Bandcamp, and you can just go. My site is DavO, DAVO, Stanton, Bryant.
DavO, Stanton,
and you'll go right to my page, and I think there's maybe 4 or 5 tunes, and you can get them for $1. And then the cool thing about Bandcamp, if you really dig it, you could pay $10 if you want.
You can pay more. You could donate more, which is awesome.
And then you download.
That. We always appreciate it as artists anytime anyone gives us. I joke about it whenever I have a jam session. Every Wednesday I host a jam session, and I always talk about the tip bucket, like the love bucket. And we won't be mad if you give a little bit of love, because all of us musicians
little better than none.
So what are you up to nowadays? I mean, I know we've covered a lot of ground and stuff like that, but creatively, I know your heart was big time in Spain for a little while. You spent some time in Spain. Tell me how much that changed. I mean, I know you've played flamenco for many, many years and been around it. You've always played with amazing guys like Chuscala is an amazing guitarist and flamenco singers and dancers.
I've got some gigs coming up with Vicente Griego.
Man, Vicente Griego is going to come on the podcast.
Absolutely, dude.
Amazing.
That's my brother.
Something inspiring about him, bro, is that he's going to get honored by the city of Santa Fe.
Absolutely. That's part of our... Yeah, I'm in that show.
You're going to do that? Man.
Yeah.
I'm sad I'm not going to be able to do that.
I think that's September 15th at the
day
Lindsay.
After my birthday.
Yeah.
I know, man.
And there'll be a flamenco set, and then kind of like a funk flamenco, whole band set. He just called me for that.
Now, when did you start playing flamenco? I know you probably got into it, but when did you start playing with, maybe to more specifically wind it down, when did you start playing with flamenco musicians in New Mexico?
I remember the day.
Oh, and the time.
But it was
evening.
I had heard of Paco and Cameron. I had actually somebody had turned me on. I was lucky. The first cassette I had was Cameron de la Isla and Paco de la Cia. And I just thought, this is the most awesome shit, And we had heard the cajon. We didn't know what a cajon was yet, What is it? It's a box. I don't get it. We hadn't seen them. We didn't know what they were. But I was playing with some older musicians, and I went with some friends to a party at the mother of Eva Encinas. So the matriarch, Eva's mother, and I'm not remembering her first name, but she's a legend. She had a place in the South Valley, a house that was also her dance studio and everything. This is where the party was. I went, and it was the first time I heard flamenco live and saw people dancing, and I was just blown away. And of course, I'm like, I gotta know what this is, right? What is that? These 12-beat cycles, the bulería and the seguirías. I'm like, where's the one, right? I got to know what this is, right?
Wow.
So definitely no one there had a box drum. That came later. I started making my own cajones in like 94. So I've had a small business.
You started making your own cajones. I have a little baby cajon, of course. Yours.
I was making
right
them,
over there.
Yeah, there it is. That's cool. Baby
that was
cajon.
the one that you made when you were in Tennessee.
Yes, I made a whole batch in 2013 in Tennessee. I don't really do them anymore because you can get an okay one at the music store for $100, and I charge a lot more than that. But that was an evolution of just loving that music, you know? Not everybody loves everything. I mean, certain things touch you. And I remember it's like just the spirit of it. You know, the way they sing, it's a lot like blues. You know, it's that just touches you in that place. So that was kind of the beginning of me learning palamas, learning the 12-beat cycles, learning how they, you know, that 12 is one, just deal with it, right? Why can't one be one? Oh, man, you're intellectualizing too much. Just let 12 be one, man.
Let it.
Right?
Let it.
You're going to have enough to deal with, all right? It's 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Just deal with it, right?
Yeah.
So, so that it's interesting because I love playing with flamenco musicians because they're all drummers, no matter what they play. They're not dependent on you for anything. Like a magic carpet ride, right? For a percussionist, you're used to like everybody kind of like leaning on you for the time or whatever. And everybody's got it. They got the compás internally, you know? So, but I don't consider myself a flamenco artist. I'm a musician. I'm a musical artist, and I can participate in some of these forms and bring my own thing to it.
Right.
That's what I love about, you know, I've spent 3 months in Spain 2 years in a row, and I didn't want to leave, but I didn't have the bank, you know, to just stay or work it out. I had to come back, right? And I just love the culture there. Europe in general, there's just a respect and appreciation for musicians and artists that it can be hard to come by in the U.S. Everybody's just, you know, this is what it is, right? And the musicians aren't getting rich there, but they have a beautiful life compared to what I'm able to create here. Really, I don't work as a musician so much here. I'm a substitute teacher.
There's so much more of a tradition of it, right? There's always been that in the culture, right?
People listen, man. It's a trip. Like even when I go, and they love jazz and blues. So, you know, I was staying mostly in Sevilla, but I have a lot of friends in Barcelona and Bilbao.
A magical city, man.
Yeah,
magical city.
Yeah, they got a bucket of pixie dust dumped on them. It's just the place it's magic, and you don't want to go. Very slow, different, right? But I think that's where I'd like to live if I can pull it off.
Yeah.
And be close to Africa because I got a lot of friends in West Africa and Senegal and Dakar.
Yes.
It's just a stone's throw from there, man.
That's right.
And I would love to be, you know, based there and then tour the world from a location like that. Oof. And just I was just happier than I've ever been in my adult life. I had no money. None of that had changed. Oh, I was taking a siesta. My body rhythms were right. I was living on olives and cerveza and you know, small portions, and nobody eats alone. Everybody's together. Within a couple weeks, I was like a different person. And I just thought, you know what? If I can just get here, I'll live longer. Because it's very stressful living in the U.S. as a working musician or low income. They're just
dealing with the day,
pressure,
man. It's
man.
just about like over there. They're just like
all I think about here is money that I don't have. I didn't think about that there. I didn't have any more money. It was like I needed a root canal. You know, one of my tooth flared up that I couldn't afford to address in the U.S. before I went. Oof. And it was one of those things that you can't ignore. You can't ignore tooth pain at that level, right? And I had gigs coming up. Ouch. I just went to a dentist off the street, and I got a root canal and a crown by an oral surgeon for $200 US, right off the street with no coverage. And they treated me so compassionately. And I was just like, okay, I'm going to save up, get all my dental work here, you know?
Can I get that guy's name?
The funny thing, it's DavO Dental. DAVOS. Dude, when I walked in and I saw...
I don't believe you. Serious?
Oh, yeah. Wow. It's like a dental chain in Spain. DavO Dental.
That's pretty hilarious, man.
It is.
That is
and no one spoke a word of English. I just went, They said, muy tranquilo, sit here, you know.
Whoa. It's amazing. That is amazing. It's like, but there are no coincidences, right?
Yeah, I don't know. Not on that level, you know.
No. How cool is that?
And I didn't expect, you know, I went there because I had some friends there, and, you know, I didn't expect to just want to stay, you know.
Now, you lived in Sevilla for a little while, but what was another one of your favorite cities? I mean, if you could live...
Barcelona,
I know you said you could...
Yeah, is off the hook.
Yeah.
I would take anywhere.
Sure.
Right?
Anywhere.
Because Barcelona's more like New York City. It's more expensive. It's
more
twice
like New
as
York
much.
City, really?
Barcelona is just like one of the greatest cities on earth.
Yeah.
And you know, the beach is there. And yeah, it's hot and humid. Who cares, man? It's like...
Yeah. Get over it.
You know what?
It's like
and it's
LA
a place
too,
that
but it's worth it.
Beautiful women from all over the world feel comfortable there. Not because Spanish men can't be pigs like any man, but it's like you can dress however you want, and people just celebrate it. They don't say, I'm going to rape you, you know, or you look like a whore. They're like, oh, ole, thank you, right? Thank you for just being so amazing, right? And I think women feel safe there. Yeah. You know, they bring their short shorts, and they put them on there that they can't wear anywhere else without being told they're a hooker or whatever, right?
Yes.
Because everybody's coming right off the beach, and it's like, if you can't handle it, go, because this is how we're rolling, right?
This is what it is.
Man, and I'm telling you, all of that. See, I've been around. I've worked with a lot of dancers. I've written music for modern dance troupes. You know, it's great to be around a bunch of naked people that they know they're beautiful, and you get used to it, right? It's healthy, right? We're so in the U.S. we're like overstimulated and under satisfied, you know what I mean? Like, it's just women have to be careful. You certainly got to be careful dressing like that in New Mexico. You know what I mean? You might get a lot of unwanted attention. I think anybody should be able to dress however they want, but you don't want to put yourself in danger, you know. But that's one thing I loved about Spain. They just, first of all, they're really beautiful people. That's the norm. Right?
Yes.
But they're not hung up, man. You go to the beach and it's everybody, man. You don't have to lose a bunch of weight before you put your swimsuit on, man. Just be enjoy life.
Just enjoy yourself.
Right?
And ain't nobody tripping or judging. It's just about like...
And if they are, they're a drag. Don't worry about them, right? Right? And it's just a sense I've traveled the world as a musician, but I was always on someone else's schedule.
But to just go and travel and live...
To be somewhere...
experience the culture, man, is a whole nother experience. Like,
it changed me.
Sometimes like traveling with, I don't know, maybe it's not for everybody, but for me, going and traveling to a place and of course having a couple things that you like to do, but more so just going there with the idea of trying to experience a place is a powerful thing. Yeah. Because to see the experience of life through their... like
different than a 4-day vacation. We're going to do this.
Oh, yeah, I'm not talking about something that can be done in a week. I'm talking about going there for a little while. Like going and spending 8 weeks in a city and like really truly allowing the city to wash over you, and how people celebrate, how passionate, why is everyone screaming every couple minutes, like every Thursday night or every Saturday night or every, you know, the stadium, oh snap, everyone's like breaking stuff now. It's like all of a sudden, and we have that here and people experience that here, but because other cities like Barcelona, which are in another country that are so much smaller and more condensed than our own are, and maybe even like, you know, like New York, you experience that stuff for sure. But the experience of being close to each other is so different, man. Like I remember when I went to Spain, you'd see all the elderly people are out and about at nighttime. They're all
if grandma's drooling on a bib, she's in a wheelchair and they're wheeling her around.
They're wheeling her around. That's right. Everyone's outside.
No one's left at home. No one sits at home and watches TV by themselves.
The sun, the end of the like this experience of living life is how they. And it's funny because I went to Spain the first time and I didn't really like it. I went in 2012 and I had a girlfriend at the time. She asked me to get her some shoes when I was in Barcelona, but
some dancing shoes.
Yeah. But excuse me, when I was in Madrid, but the experience of being there, you know, was through the lens of my dad's experience of like, I want to see galleries, I want to see museums, more so than galleries, museums, and I want to see these experiences that are all early in the morning. And you know, Spain is not really a morning culture or a breakfast culture. And so that trying to like look for good, and breakfast is my favorite meal of the day. Yeah. So trying to look for a good breakfast and being, like angry all day then because you got a shitty
I found a local place that would make me the El DavO. This is more than anyone would eat for breakfast. That's what I want. 2 eggs, everything.
What do you do?
They're like, everything?
What was that? What was it? Everything.
Yeah. Oh my God! I had this little family joint, and they called it the El DavO. It was 2 eggs, several kinds of meats, some potatoes. But it was like a big plate. They would joke. They would like, watch him. He's gonna eat the whole thing, because they do that meal for lunch. They don't even do it for dinner, right? They eat that big meal. I'm sure if I lived there, I would get more into that rhythm, right? Because I dug that siesta, man.
That siesta thing changed my life. The next time I went to Spain, I loved it. I think I told you about it, but when I was in the second time I went, I mean, I didn't experience it like I was telling you with my dad. It was just a drag to do that whole thing like that, And I knew I didn't experience Spain in the Spanish living, in the Spanish style of experiencing, of living, of being. And so when I went the second time, I was in Sevilla. My friend Sol, who actually just called me earlier.
That was her?
That was her. That was her, cool. Man. She's a tica. She's from Costa Rica, but she has a house in Sevilla. And she was like, I can't meet you. I forgot that I actually have to work at that time. So, like, here's the address. Take this bus, or just take a cab. And, I mean, I had gotten mugged when I was in South Africa. And so when I went up from South Africa to Amsterdam and got to experience a little bit of Amsterdam as much as I could before I came to Spain, I didn't have very much money and I didn't know how much was going to last me. So I just did the cheapest route, which was get some buses, like basically take one bus. And then I walked almost the other rest of the way.
Dig.
Which was like a ton of blocks, and I got a super workout and was sweating like crazy, but it was amazing.
Great place to walk.
It was gorgeous, man. It was beautiful to walk through the city, and she lived in the Plaza de Candelaria.
Sure. I was right off the Alameda.
Man, the Alameda. No, the Plaza de Alameda, I believe, is where she was.
Okay, I was right around the corner from that.
I forget where exactly her place was or what the name of the restaurant was that she told me that she left her keys at, but she told me the name of like this place to go get breakfast at, tell them that I am Sol's friend, that,
they'll give you the keys.
That's right. Yeah. And so I got breakfast there and, I was like, what should I get? They're like, oh, un pan integral, and you can get it with jamon. And I got it with jamon. I got it with some jam, some avocado, and I spread all that stuff and put the meat on top of it, and I made my own breakfast sandwich, and it was the most delicious, amazing thing. And they would fresh squeeze the oranges, so make you the most delicious orange juice
and coffee, just the way you want it.
Espresso or coffee, and I just sat there and just did that, sweating like a dog from having walked all this way, but sat down, had the most amazing, had the most amazing breakfast, and then got the keys, and I went up. And I went to the wrong floor. And so I was trying to, jingle the key into someone else's apartment. Luckily, no one busted the door and was like, what the fuck are you doing? And I just, gave up on trying to find the apartment. So I just kind of chilled outside when, did something to occupy my time, found a music store. And once she came back, then went and met her. But it was an experience, man, because when I lived with her and when I was in Sevilla, to take the siesta in and experience having a break in the middle of the day, as well as
it's not
dinner.
Just 2 hours.
No.
It's like 4 hours.
Well,
and you don't call anybody during that time. That's like calling someone at 4 a.m.
That's right. And
from like about 2 to 6.
It's disrespectful. Yeah,
absolutely. It better be an emergency.
Yeah, and businesses are closed. So like you can't go out to,
except for the Chico markets, the Chinese markets.
Certain things are open at that hour, right?
That's how they make their business,
But waking up late because dinner also is way late.
It could be 10 o'clock.
Yeah,
it could be 11.
That's right. That's right.
When you
and
have supper.
Experiencing life like that was so cool. And just to go out and see like the bars and the plaza filled at night, all of the places filled, every single lunch hour, day, breakfast, like people just live and they converse and they go out and experience. Like it just seemed like that. You just get that feeling.
It's healthier.
And it was.
Yeah. Even though I was on by myself a lot, but people would kind of look at me and say, hey, are you by yourself? You want to
join us? Yeah, man. They are like that. They're so welcoming.
Leaving anybody alone,
Yeah.
And another thing, you know, a lot of Spain's trying to get out of the siesta, but not Sevilla.
Really? What do you mean a lot of
just
Spain's
like the modern world,
Really?
business being more money oriented.
No.
Don't shut down. Yeah. But it really works. It's a good human rhythm.
Wow.
And I think it's a healthy rhythm. And you know, they open their shops back up at 8 and maybe stay open till midnight or 1. It's not like they're not getting their 8-hour day in, right? If you have a business or whatever.
Yeah.
But another thing that I really fell in love with Sevilla is how everybody dresses, especially the men. Yeah. Of course, the women are just stunning, right? But the men dress very creatively, and no one would ever ridicule, right? I mean, you'll see guys with like a lime green jacket and gray slacks and just the craziest combos, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, and it's like, it's kind of there's a generosity of spirit. That's how it hit me. They're not dressing for themselves. They're dressing for everybody else.
How cool.
Because it's cool, right? And no one would say, you know, here, like, I like to dress that way. I've liked to dress that way since I was a kid, right?
Yeah.
Well, right now I got red pants on and maybe some cool shoes. You know what I mean?
Right. You've always been a shoes guy. I've always known you.
I like good shoes, right? Even when I was going to Sunday school.
Yeah.
I had out, you know, I got to wear a tie.
I took care of my kicks. Yeah.
I'm wearing a ascot, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like I dressed better then than I do now. But sometimes I dress down in New Mexico or in Albuquerque because I don't want people yelling at me from a car or whatever, right?
Yeah.
That and Spain brought out more like I could do that. I could be my
get away with this.
Yeah, and people are just gonna, you know, they don't make a big deal out of it, you know, but
part of me thinks about when it comes to Spain is like not just like style, but like Sevilla because of that being so close. Of course, Cali is even closer, but
that's the one place I really wanted to visit. Yeah.
I really wanted to go to as well. I have a couple of friends that are from
ancient
there
city. Yeah.
But Morocco's influence, and like a couple of the guys that I hung around with had like Moroccan, like, you know, like the kind of man purse thing, or just kind of like
dig it. I used to rock a man purse. I can't pull it off anymore.
No, in the States, it's not so cool. It's not so cool.
And they hold it. It's not even on a strap.
A Cartier you can kind of get away with, or like one of those like little bags, satchel bags, you know, you can get away with, but not so much the man purse like you can over there. And they're nice. They're made out of beautiful leather, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But no.
No, the best wallet I've ever had, I have now that I bought in Barcelona.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah, the leather work is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, just, you know, the men do have great style. And, you know, it's another reason I really admire black culture. Almost everything I've learned about dressing or all that came from black people. You know, it's just like a style, wanting to be stylish, you know. And there, even if you dress casually in Spain, you always do a little something. You know, there's like a little something, a touch. And it's kind of frowned upon. Actually, the last time I was there, my luggage didn't go with me. It went to Russia. So I had no clothes with me.
What do you mean? The last time you went to Spain? The last time you went to Sevilla?
Yes, actually, it was the first time I went back in 2015. My luggage went to Russia. So I didn't have anything for like 2 weeks. Luckily, it did finally get to me. But I was in kind of jeans and a T-shirt, and people were looking at me like, come on, man. A little something, man. You do better than that. You know, just eye with the eyes, right? And, you know, I was really on a tight budget, but I had to go and, you know, get a shirt with some color.
Yeah.
Pick up a couple things.
You went and got a couple of things.
Yeah, I had to zip it up. Yeah, you know, I had to take it up a notch.
Goodwill shop or something and get some old secondhand badass shirts.
Like, come on, man. Make an effort. You know?
Something, right?
Yeah, you know. But I felt, and the way the men dress there is insane. I don't know how they pull it off, but these guys can wear like full suits in the middle of summer and they're not even breaking a sweat. That's like some kind of genetic thing.
I know, wow.
I can't do that, you know.
How are you doing that? Now, tell me, bro, like what do you see in the future for DavO, for David, Stanton, Bryant, for Dave, Stanton, Bryant, tell me about like what creatively you want to do. I mean, I know you're going to put out some more original music. Do you see like a full album maybe coming together?
Yeah,
someday?
I write music all the time. It's always going on kind of in the background, right? I'm a substitute school teacher.
But tell me, like,
these days, so that's a very demanding, like I have very little energy after a full day.
Sure.
But I really enjoy that. and it's great for now. But I still carve out my own time to work on my own music and address that.
Yeah.
And also this summer I had a chance. I've got a home studio set up that I travel with. I can turn any little bedroom into a good recording setup.
Awesome.
And I'm tracking on some really great sessions from Albuquerque. So this summer I tracked on a session that was happening in Los Angeles where I recorded my tracks. You know, they send me a stereo Pro Tools file. I add my tracks, send them back. I tracked on a session in San Francisco, and I also tracked on a session in Tel Aviv, Israel.
Wow.
And a singer I'd never heard of that's a big star in Europe named Aiden Rochelle.
Aiden Rochelle?
Yeah, I-D-A-N. I think it's R-A-C-H-A-E-L.
That's so cool.
Aiden Rochelle. Sings in Hebrew, speaks English, but doesn't sing in English. And the music's amazing. The guy sings incredible. And so I added multiple drum tracks to a session that's probably going to come out this year. So you never know.
That's awesome. No, but like DavO, the story of plans of like, you know, getting some of the Monster Cats, getting Kermit Druffins or Driscoll into the studio, or, you know, like ain't no thing on the horizon that you see within the next, say like you know, I'm trying to give you a bigger dream or like expectation here within the next 5 years.
Ah, wow.
Right? Because like,
I don't usually think in those terms.
Well, just imagine, just imagining, because like, man, like you and I have been talking about original music since you put that stuff out, which was all those years ago, and I put out my original music too. And the deal I have with my independent record label that I signed on with, Bubble Bath Records, which you can check out my album at bubblebathrecords.com.
Absolutely.
You have to put out one release every year.
Very good. I haven't done that.
I think about even just a yearly goal, but like
now, a release is a group of tunes, right?
No, man, it can be one release can be a single.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying. Yeah. That's a release, but one release per year for the artist contract with them. Because
I'm late, man. I'm late. Gotta get with it, you know, because I got a whole backlog.
You got the contract with yourself, man. Right.
Well, I've been very lucky. You know, our friend, our mutual friend, Patty Littlefield, who's a great singer.
Who's going to be on the podcast tomorrow?
Dig that.
Very excited.
Right on. Props out to Patty.
Yeah.
You know, we were Facebook friends because my stuff, even though it's on what's the Bandcamp.
Yeah.
It's not a commercial release. There's been no promotion. No, it's not like I have a label or anything, right? It's just there if someone wants to go check it out. You just put it out
on the internet.
Ether. Yeah. And it's good because you get all the copyright stuff together, so you're protected.
Right.
But Patty and I, we've played together over the years. I hadn't seen her in a long time, but we're Facebook friends. And I asked, hey, can I send you like some of my original stuff? She says, yeah, sure, you know. Right. And she really liked it, you know. And it's amazing. Sometimes it only takes one person.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, it helps if they're a great singer and an awesome DJ and they got a radio show. But Patty has played a handful of my tunes on her show.
How cool
you
is
know,
that?
Right after Jocko or right after Daphnis Prieto, or I mean, just to see my name in there blows my mind.
How cool is that, man? That's amazing. It's amazing. Yeah, Patty's such an inspiring character, man. I know you were...
and to have somebody say, hey, you deserve to be heard. It's hard to say that about yourself.
It's an empowering thing to have someone like Patty like affirm to you that what you're doing is beautiful and you got to keep doing it, man. Because Patty has done that for me too, man. You know? And like, I was so happy when because Patty's amazing. Since she started doing that job over at the radio station KUNM here in Albuquerque, she's just been so serious about every show and about not just bringing you a great show, but making sure it's the best show every single week you can make.
You can tell she puts a lot of work into it. I mean, she puts out that list of everything that's going on when day breaks. Yeah, absolutely.
12:01. That post the button was
almost
stroking,
every time she's played one of my pieces. I've been working or teaching where I couldn't even hear it.
Sure, you have to hear the after effect of the 2-week archive. Which
but
is
there was one day I wasn't
right?
working,
and you got to hear it live.
And
how cool is that, man?
Blew my mind.
You're on the radio in the car, and you're like, "Holy shit, that's me. That's my."
And after me, it was John Coltrane.
That's my stuff that I was working on so hard in my room. You know, it's like, and after
literally right. Made it in a bedroom and finished it off.
It's empowering, man.
It.
I love KUNM, and and I kind of abuse them a little bit for sometimes when I just kind of ask too much of them, but I love them and I need to support them more. I plan on having a lot of the people from KUNM on the podcast. Man.
Yes,
Hattie,
important.
I plan on having Glenn Coster, who's now, is not just connected with KUNM, but has a long story with me.
Is Glenn doing a show?
He's doing a Friday. He's doing the Friday show, man.
Awesome.
Yeah, and then Randy Koleski does Tuesdays. I definitely want to have him on.
KUNM was the first time I ever recorded in a studio. Yes.
Oh, really? Was it with Mark's show or whose show was it?
No, this is way back.
Way back.
Maybe because I was 14. I was in a band called Govinda. They knew that an overnight DJ, right? They would play like literally from 2 a.m. to 6 or whatever.
Yeah.
And he'd have local people come and play live. Wow. And you would leave with a demo. I mean, he'd record it and you'd leave with a cassette, right?
How cool is that?
Yeah. So
with a cassette.
Yeah.
How sick.
A cassette. This would have been maybe 77.
Shit, man. I wish cassettes were still around.
I still have
rewind them whenever they get all unwound with the eraser,
Well, that's I have a bunch of vinyl that's only been played once.
Yeah.
I would play my record, I would record a cassette and then play the cassette.
Nice.
And I always bought high quality cassettes.
That's cool. That's smart of you.
I have cassettes that are 30 years old. They're in fine shape.
Man, I definitely want to put out when I put out the finish putting out the trilogy of my first album, quote unquote. I want to put it out in vinyl,
Yes.
and cassette.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, why the heck not, man? The cassette players are not really making a comeback, but just
kids
to make
will look
couple.
At it like, what is that? Right?
Look at this artifact.
What do I push?
Do I hang it on the wall?
Here, do I pull this tape out? Do I pull it out here? What's on here?
Should I cut it and give it out? It's like, fuck. Anyways, man, I mean, Daryl, we can do a couple of these podcasts, and I look forward to having you on another
Certainly,
podcast.
I hardly ever think about any of this stuff.
It just flows so naturally, man. We're already, at our limit here, bro, and I wish I could have you on for more time, bro. Oh, not very much time, man. Just an hour and a half.
Wow, that's heavy. Time's a trip, right?
It's been amazing talking to you, my man. Time is a trip. I'm sure we can go for 3 hours and still be like, what was that? 3 hours already? But I look forward to having you on the podcast again, man. I want to end with something, if you're down with doing with me, is that I started doing with this poet Hakeem Bellamy, that podcast of his has already dropped, I imagine, by the time this will come out. But we did a podcast, and I should have started it by now already because I've already had some other amazing musicians, but we started doing a little improvisation collab at the end. And so
I usually charge for that.
I hope you charge my account, bro. I'm gonna send you her email, okay? Yeah. She's out of Spain, all right.
That's the harsh mercenary world, right?
Yes. So I'm gonna go grab this little mini cajon that you built in Tennessee. Tell people about you were in Tennessee for a little while, right? That's where you built this?
I've lived in Nashville twice. Once in like '94. That was the time to stay and put down roots. But and then I ended up in Nashville in 2013 because I tried to move back to New York City and Hurricane Sandy happened. So I was actually going to live at Kermit Driscoll's house.
Dude, I remember you told me about this and then everything happening.
So Kermit had a bedroom for me. He says, look, you can live at my house for a year.
Wow.
And I said, well, he said, no, you're not going to pay rent or anything. You can live at my house for a year. Just come, right?
Right.
So he was touring with Frizzell and doing all these. He says, if I'm not here, the wife knows you're coming. Just get here, right? So he wasn't returning my calls, right? I'm like, Kermit, I'm on the way, man. I'll be there in like 2 weeks. I'm driving cross country. Well, Kermit's not calling back. But he said, if I don't call back, don't worry, right? Well, Kermit had a stroke. Kermit had like some serious health issues, had to have surgery. Then Sandy hit. He couldn't even stay at his house in Fort Lee, right? So he was staying with one of his kids, someplace that had power, and it just never came together. So I did get up to New York, but it was like a week after the hurricane. I helped some friends clean out some stuff. But I didn't have the bank. I mean, everything was shut down. There was no gigs going on. There's nothing, right?
Damn.
So that was right before Christmas. And a friend of mine in Nashville said, hey, just come back to Nashville and just chill, right? Yeah. And I ended up staying about a year in Nashville and tried to break into the recording scene. And, that's a whole other story, right?
Thing, right?
But my friend had Nick Audino has Superior Coach. He was actually one of my first bus drivers in '91. Now he owns his own bus company, and he had this gigantic workshop. And he said, "Yeah, go." So I literally just going into the dumpster, I made about 20 cajones just with scrap pieces.
So you came down from all that trip and you stayed with this guy.
Yeah,
and then you just worked in his shop.
I stayed. I tried to break
wood,
make the best of it. Break into some gigs. But I ended up making a bunch of cajones, and I've sold them all.
Dude,
there's a trip to see this. This is the baby cajon with one tooth. With
one guitar too. Tell them about that while I tune this up. What is that? Like you put guitar strings actually in there, which some cajones have, not all of them, right?
Yeah. No, I found a way to just float the strings and then have a guitar motor so you can adjust the string inside the cajon, which...
Yeah.
So should I move the mic if I set this thing down?
Yeah, eventually, yeah. Once you finish telling them about this, once I get this all tuned up, then we'll move the mics in.
This is a baby cajon, which is really almost unplayable. It's almost, I thought of it as this was the scraps of the scraps.
And he gave it to me. He's like, have fun.
Yeah, here, you can have this one, right?
I wanted a full-size one, but I didn't get one.
No, it came out of the littlest pieces from the scraps that I didn't really want to throw away. I started putting together little mini baby cajones that were almost like a sampler. Right, like back in the day, they would have a sample in the store of the thing you would buy, but it was just a little version on the counter. So that was kind of my thinking.
Just to tease you, it's like, it looks like a guitar you can play, but nope, you can't really play it.
Yeah, I always make my tops playable, but then through playing with this, I made a deeper one that a grown-up can sit on and play, and those sound really nice.
I hope that you make me a bigger one, bro. I'm gonna buy you some nice woods. Because I'm gonna start
making money for the work to go on,
baby. Boo, I got you. Come on now. You know I don't ever expect anyone to give anything for free.
Like Jeff Bezos says, no free lunch on planet Earth.
And like we said earlier, you can go ahead and buy one of those songs for the small price of $99.99 over at Bandcamp/DavO Bryant Music. Dig it. All right. So what are we gonna play, DavO?
Well, we didn't plan any of this. Why should we plan the music, right?
Let's do it. All right, you want to pick that thing up?
I'm just gonna. I'll back up and put the mic down.
Yeah, if you just want to adjust the mic and do that setup, we're just gonna pause this for a second, adjust everything, and then we'll press play and improvise away. Thank you, Brother DavO. That's the podcast. Thank you all for listening. Now, as the intro starts for this podcast, I began playing and kind of looped the instrumental part of one of DavO's songs. One of his songs from this album that we happen to be talking about, which I'm embedding a link into. You can find it at davostantonbryant.bandcamp.com. And this song that we're listening to is a badass song from that album, and it's called Notes and Directions. There's 6 songs. I recommend you go check all of them out. But for now, enjoy DavO Stanton Bryant's Notes and Directions.
I'm getting up early, gonna be on time, gonna be
I'm going to stay grounded, that's the way. Then bad vibes, they won't get through. Just touch the earth, she will hear you. I'll be touching Mother Earth now. Just trust her, she has the know-how. I'll be touching Mother Earth now. That's it, there's nothing to it. Just put your skin on your mama. Just do it, she will help you through it. Feel that groove now deep inside of you. Rockin' steady, now you know just what to do. Feel my waves crashing over you. There's so much love here. You want some more? I know you do. I got it here for you. I'm knocking at your door. Come on, baby, let me in. I'm gonna make you mine. It's a matter of time. You know I have the key. Come on, baby, you and me. Open up and let me in. You and me coming together. Can't think of nothing better. You and me coming together. Don't let her be bad, the goodness. Just see it, see right through it. I know that we can do it. Inside in my soul.